Should have some music or something, but I checked. I don't think I'm allowed to use it. Copyright stuff, but I have to find something else. It's a bit quiet. Kind of a horrible color. Green is a horrible color. Never works well. See what my camera's doing. Flashing should be better. Okay, I'm gonna do roughly the same painting, but I wanted to put a house in it, so that's the only goal. Pretty much the same. You get to see it real time. Probably not as comprehensive though, because I'm trying to talk at the same time, but just it'll be roughly the same. So I try and blend this into the mountain. No, you can't just have a straight line. If you imagine in the background, this is gonna be fields and stuff like that. And you just have to pretend detail. You don't have to do real detail, you have to just pretend like the fields and things like that. Suggest detail rather than doing it. If you look at photos in the distance, it looks like there's tons and tons of detail, but if you zoom in, it looks terrible. So it's not too dissimilar. So I'm just getting in the big shapes now. So nice, very, very light path. Even the dark bit's light. So let's do this. I gotta keep in mind where I'm gonna put this house. I think I'll put it here. But it's gonna be tricky. The house is gonna be quite important, so I'll probably do it now. Usually when I start houses, I'm not entirely sure what color I'll do them, so I'll do them grey to start with. Pick a light source, can come from the right. So this will be fairly dark. Then I'll pick a light one over here. This is where some sort of roof will go. I don't worry too much about perspective right now. You can mess around with that later. Let's just get something in. That'll do. Grab a chimney. Don't want to grab a chimney. And the reason for the chimney is because you can have a nice shadow. Which makes it a much more 3D. So there's the basis of it. You gotta make sure when you draw a house or a farm or something like that, is that it's not totally on the floor like this. It just looks weird. You gotta have kind of foliage going above it so it blends in with the floor. Okay, that looks better. So this is kind of where it's going. Some trees. What I like to do with trees is put the kind of the stump in, even though it's green, which I generally do. One thing to notice is to make sure you break lines. So we have a line there, so make sure your trees break lines is one thing you do. So is try to keep them neat inside. That's what our brain tries to do. But try and break them. So you could do that. You gotta be a bit careful with scale though, because that'd be a very big tree. If you look at the house, that'd be like very, very big tree. But I mean, that's okay. This is not exactly realistic, but it still has to make some sort of sense. So let's get some foliage in. We can make it better later, but I just want something to fix. Don't really like those colors, but I don't really like the colors of anything yet, so it's not a big deal. I'll change the colors later, maybe even completely, but you don't want to try and think of too many things at one time. So if you're trying to do composition, since I'm not really looking at anything, so I don't know what this is going to turn out like, so I'm not copying anything. I don't know, I have no idea what the composition is going to be. I'm still at that working it out stage, so I don't really want to be worrying about color too much and all other complicated things, so I try and keep it simple for now. I get a warning. Some warnings come up on my screen. I don't know what that's about. Okay, whatever. Let's ignore it. Okay, the mountain's looking a bit strange. Let's add some highlights. So the highlights are going to come from the right. The reason they come from the right is because I have the biggest mass. So generally I'll choose where the biggest mass is coming from. This, I don't know what my, this video is kind of oversaturated. My colors are not quite desaturated, but okay, whatever. I'll put a new layer clipper mask, which means the colors will stay within the shape underneath, which is very handy. Well, I want to put highlights and I have to care about getting them in the right place. So I choose the color, so I'll pick that color. It's always a good start. Make it light. You know, I always do that because sometimes you want like the highlights to follow the sun, but I'm not really doing a sun kind of picture. But if you had some sort of sunset going on, you'd want these highlights to match that sunset. So it's not a great color now anyway. So it's yeah, don't go too nuts, because I mean that kind of kills your eyes, and it's in front of these things down here now, so it can't be that bright. So highlights are quite difficult. I've made a mess of highlights plenty of times in the past, and I was like, oh, I want really bright snow. And it's like, okay, but in the distance, it's still not that bright. So you gotta, so bright snow is like, I don't know, this bright or whatever, maybe this bright, but it can't be this, if that makes any sense. So you can't really go too dark, just, well, you can't, you just, these are subtle highlights now, so that's fine. Let's go subtle. It's all a bit too saturated, I would say. So let's take the saturation down, brighten it up a bit. Okay, it looks fine now. I can't really tell until no, that's messed up. It's the wrong way. But you won't be able to tell how well things are going until you've got a lot of things going on, and there's just not enough going on yet. So let's not get too concerned with it looking strange. Let's just get the major shapes in and make it look like something. Then we can worry about if it's working later. Okay, let's get some clouds in. Clouds. I was doing some anime stuff the other day, and one thing I noticed about the clouds is they were pretty big and kind of swept this way. They took up a lot of space. So let's do the same thing. And I'll alpha lock it this time, which does exactly the same as clipper mask, but the difference is it stays on the same layer, which is sometimes handy because you don't always want two layers. If you know you're gonna kind of nail it, you don't have to worry too much. But if you're unsure, just use clipper mask every time, basically. You can't really go wrong with clipper mask because you can merge it after. Where if you do alpha lock, you can't, and you're stuck at that point. Okay, right, I turn alpha lock off now because I want to change the shapes, because these are not nice shapes. So let's make them round. Be a bit more careful. Okay, we're kind of getting somewhere. You probably need to pick a color for this little hut thing. And the easiest way is to use gradient maps. So we go there, we go gradient map, and we choose a bunch of pre-made ones. These come with Procreate. You're gonna make sure they the right way around, because sometimes they make your shadows the wrong way around. So quite like the dark one, but it's a bit too dark. One trick is to zoom all the way out, like really, really, really far, so you can see like it stands out too much now. So that's too bright. That's okay, but the color's a bit mental. That's not too bad. Blue's a bit blue. We want probably red. Red one works. We don't want it all red, but we can fix that later. Let's go red for now. Like I said, we don't want it all red, so usually these things, let's have a clipper mask again, because I don't know. I don't do, let's fill in these gaps first. I don't do buildings that often, so there's still a challenge to me. Some things I paint a lot, like trees and rocks and rivers and mountains and stuff like that. I can do them without looking, but I can't do buildings without looking. I have to take my time, and the perspective's kind of off here, which we can manipulate in a minute. But usually when you have these kind of things, you have like a tin roof. So it'll be like dark grey blue, something like that. With my clipper mask, that should go on okay. I want to turn. So usually when I get it okay, then I'll merge it. Otherwise, it gets kind of confusing if you don't know what layer you're on and what's clipping and what's not clipping. So kind of get those right. Now the gradient mapping of this building has actually blown out the fact that this should be bright and this should be dark. So that's fine. I'll go with alpha lock this time because I think this should be fairly easy. Let me say that. Should zoom out and double check, but we can change it later. Okay, that's not too bad. It's not too bad. One thing we should probably add now is some shadow. I don't use shadow all the time, but because it's a big building, then we should really have something. So it doesn't have to be complicated, and I make sure it kind of isn't. It's underneath that little foliage thing I put. So actually, I'll merge that foliage and the shadow. That's kind of fine. We'll see, but The foliage should probably have some shadow as well. But yeah, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter too much. Let's just make sure it's got something. And you got to be really careful with buildings that they are pretty much correct. So we have to have that, and then we have to have the shadow on top of the hue, which would be the same color but dark, obviously. And you certainly don't have to be accurate, you just have to know which direction it's coming from. Yeah, this shape's kind of crap. So one thing you can do with these, if you turn off color fill, you grab this, and then we can press warp. Where's warp gone? Click that one, and then distort. Distort's pretty good. That'll give you a good start. And then you got warp, which is even better. You can do even better stuff with warp. Yeah, so it's okay, but it's better. You can definitely tell it's better. Probably went a bit too far. Okay, it's okay. It's not great. So let's flip it horizontally. So I flip it horizontally. Gives you a better idea of if it's working or not. Turn color fill back on. Yeah, not too bad. Sometimes kind of off, but yeah, don't dwell on that too much, because it's only going to be, you know, part of the whole thing. All right, so let's add another layer. Let's put some windows and stuff in. Let's go whitish. Let's just go white for now. Make the shape, make some sort of shape. Scale's always tricky. I don't know what kind of scale this should be. That's probably too big. So let's make that smaller, skinnier. Move it over there. Yeah, that's not too bad. Not too bad. Maybe too bright. Yeah, let's go for that. Pick that. Let's tidy it up a bit. Don't want it too tidy though, because you know my paintings are kind of messy. I want to keep it messy. I need to fix this though. Got alpha lock on. If you kind of do color fill and you see nothing happening, you probably got alpha lock still in. Let's fill that in. Tidy this up a little bit. Okay, let's put a couple of windows. So let's go the same color, but it's going to be much darker this side. A bit of perspective, not too much, which I generally do. So I think this middle thing's on the wrong place. One thing you can do to find the middle place of where this place is supposed to be is you draw an X. So let me do that now. You draw an X between these two, and then you go up, exactly up, and that's where it's supposed to be. It's not too far off actually. It's a little bit off. So it's gonna be the should come up there. But for this style, it's not such a big deal. But let's do that anyway. So actually go over a little bit, down a little bit. I don't know why I don't like drawing buildings so much, because you have to be picky about it. Okay, it's fine now. I'm spending too much time on that. Okay, let's put some sun in, make it a little bit more interesting. Okay, this grass is a bit too light, so I try to drop it down. It's too light because I want to put some highlights on it. So the highlights are not going to look very good if if the underlying one is too bright. So let's get some highlights. Okay, not too bad. Let's get some yellowy ones going on. If it isn't clear by now, I'm not using any brushes. If you've seen any of my videos, you'll know that already. I'm using the select tool, freehand color fill, and that is pretty much 90% of it. I'm not actually looking at this reference, I should probably close it, but I'll leave it there because I want to do the snow thing. And these clouds are actually blue, and this mountain is much too saturated. Oops. Merge those two layers. If you use Procreate, you can do this pinch thing, which is pretty cool. You can pinch all these layers together. Didn't know that for a long time. So let's desaturate them. Okay, that's more like it. Makes the building pop out a lot. I would say that's probably too. I mean, I like saturated colors, but it's a bit mental. Yeah, it's a bit less painful on the eyes. The things need to be a bit more green and darker. Let's put a slight highlight on the chimney thing, because that would be bright. Okay, just taking a minute. I'm pretty hot. Okay, this path is not a nice color to be honest, but I'm gonna put pebbles and stuff over the top of it. So let's get some nicer colors going on. Now, one thing you do to make these shapes interesting is make sure you don't make them individual. So don't do that. See all gaps around. See, look, that looks weird. And there's the reason this doesn't look weird is because I'm making sure you leave some gaps, but not many gaps. And as you get forward, you can make bigger shapes to give it some perspective. Okay, makes it look a bit more interesting. One thing you want to do with the path is you want some shadow, because these parts are going to be in shadow because of the grass will overlap it a little bit. So fairly straightforward. You don't want to do too much, but pick like a darker color. So where the grass hits the bottom, you're gonna have a shadow. Not there, because that is covering from behind. So you got there a little bit, and don't go too nuts in the distance because you wouldn't see it. So it's maybe not dark enough, but the point is I can show you that if I go really dark, you can see now why. You probably don't want to go that dark, but because you want to go a bit subtle. But one thing about all these little rocks and things, you want to do different colors. So not too many, just shift it a little bit. And you might find that you shifted it a bit too much, which I think I probably did. No, it's not too bad. But I'll do it again. So you can shift it a little bit. Just worry about the shapes right now, not the color, because we can change that before we commit. Okay, so if I think I've done it a bit too dark, which I think I probably did. So color shifts are good, but the value needs to stay the same. So there we go, subtle, very, very subtle. Okay, let's. I like jumping around, so let's go to. Where's the trees gone? There's the trees. Let's alpha lock those. Get some highlights going in on these, which is coming from the right. Remember, trees always have shadows down the bottom, because the foliage. Well, these types of trees anyway, they cover the bottom. So to the right and to the top. Again, I'm not too accurate. Just want to make it a bit more interesting. So I've probably gone overboard here. So sometimes I'll go back and put the dark bits back in. Okay, it's a bit better, but it's still a bit too highlighty, especially the big one. If they're small, you can probably get away with not worrying about it too much, but the big ones, avoid straight lines on trees. Okay, not too bad. Oh look, this tree thing's gonna, the stuff under the house is gonna a bit nuts because the color doesn't match. We need it to match. So let's just grab that, blend them in. We probably need some highlights on this tin roof thing. So what's this? Nothing. Let's get rid of that. So let's do some highlights. Come in here. That's better. Make it more 3D. And you probably need some stuff under here. Yeah, the light wouldn't get in. Okay, I'm not going to be too accurate on this stuff. Just trying to have fun and see what happens. Let's go back to the mountain. I don't like the mountain too much. You get these big ass shapes. You wouldn't have like these big straight shapes there, because they're very jaggedy mountains and they got a lot of little spikes and things. So there's one thing nice about this tool is you can be quite messy easily and create random stuff and imply that there's highlights and rocks and things hitting the light hitting places without too much effort. So like this it couldn't be like this because the mountain has so many ridges and things that this just would not happen. You wouldn't have a ridge because in the distance this would be like, I don't know, hundreds of feet or something, so it couldn't be that straight. One thing to make sure is like highlights are kind of, oops, we need alpha lock on, make sure I don't go off. But obviously while I'm messy, you gotta make sure that it doesn't go incorrect, and incorrect means the light's hitting there, so it's definitely not gonna hit there. So I gotta be a bit careful to go back and fix things. Okay, mountain's looking a bit better now. I don't like this bit because again, it would be very unlikely that you could have a big straight shape. Okay, we can do some rocks now. I like rocks. I'm not really using this reference anymore. I'll close this. So rocks are always a good fun thing to do. They're quite tricky. but make sure they just, one thing to do is make sure they're in clumps. And what I'm trying to do really quickly, and the reason I do it quickly is because if you overthink it, things kind of get worse. So what I'm trying to do is vary my shapes every time. Now that doesn't mean I do, it just means I'm trying. So make sure they're dark, because we're gonna lighten them up. Okay, that will do. Maybe put a few on the path. Not too many, because it'll look a bit busy. So I'll alpha lock that and go slightly lighter. And we'll start putting in some highlights. Again, you got to put the highlights in different angles and different sizes. And when you go back, they can be mostly white or light, because the value would be higher anyway. So let's just try and keep varied as quickly as possible. For me, you can go slow, but I get worse if I go slow. So that's why I try to be quick. Okay, not too bad. And one thing with rocks is you can gradient map them, which looks kind of cool sometimes. It doesn't really matter. Just pick one that suits. And if the color's wrong, don't worry about the color. What you're looking for is, does it look, because we can change the color quite easily, but does it look right? So that looks okay. So, but now we can just change the color, saturation, brightness, etc. Let's go for bright rocks. And one thing about that, you can see now I have a bit of a problem, I would say, is I have a concentration of rocks. Now, one thing you don't want to do, a quick notes token. One thing you want to do is you don't want like a concentration of anything. So what that just means is basically make sure you put a few somewhere else. So it doesn't look like, you know, you contrive to put all the rocks in the same place, which wouldn't make any sense. So just dot a few others around and it doesn't look so mental then. It's just a subtle thing, but it doesn't matter. Now there's one problem with these rocks. They're floating. Now we need to put a layer underneath. Just use pure black for now. Doesn't matter. But rocks need a shadow. And remember, the sun's coming this way. So depending on how big the rock is, it gets a bigger shadow. You don't have to worry about the ones close. Don't worry about the ones like up here, because shadows are kind of not so obvious in the distance, and most of the time you can't see them. So we're talking about the foreground mainly. Again, they don't need to be accurate, and we can tidy them up anyway, but it's just important they exist in the first place. So now they look a bit weird, but now the rocks look like they're on the floor. Now I'll show you without, and they won't look like they're on the floor anymore. They look like they're just stuck on. So we put that back. Now you don't want them full opacity, right? We don't want them like that. We want them like something like that, so they take on the underneath. So now once you see that, you can fix a couple, and the ones on the paths are quite important because it makes the path look more interesting. Now depending on how fussy you are, you can get these really right. Now this is technically wrong, but I don't really care, you know, because it couldn't be doing that. So the sun is coming from that direction, so we'd hit this and go something like this. But in real terms, when you zoomed out, you can't tell these small things anyway. So personally, I wouldn't worry about it. Like this is not possible. It would have to be something like that. But it doesn't really matter, you know, because if I got everything else wrong, it doesn't really matter. If I got, you know, the clouds are kind of wrong, so I need to deal with those. Right, they're too dark, I think. I don't know. They just don't look quite right, so let's mess around. Yeah, that's better. I think there's something else wrong. I think this green in the background is too dark. Yeah, it's not making the contrast, so you see the difference. Go before and after. You can't see the. We need a good separation between this bit and that bit. And before, what's it doing? Yeah, and after. But now there's a problem because this separation thing is also the wrong color. So usually when you start changing colors and things, it has a knock-on effect if you have to change a lot more. But that's fine. There's not a lot you can do about that. You just have to keep on going until it makes more sense. Let's go foreground. Let's chuck in another layer. I try not to have too many layers. I don't know if this is many for you, but I know some people who have like 100 or 200. I can't deal with that. If it gets absurd, I start merging them. So we got like a path, and in Procreate you can just do that and squish them together. So I don't need the path to be separate anymore. I don't need those to be separate anymore. So I merge as I go. So I don't know how many I have. This canvas information. I do have the really good iPad Pro here though. So let's just see how many layers. I can have 326. I'm not gonna have 326. That's absolutely ridiculous. But good that I can, I suppose. So let's go back here. And one thing you want to do, maybe not so much with the anime type look, is make sure you have dark things in the front. But I think I want to do that. I think I'll leave it kind of like, I'm not liking the look of this house. It's a bit dark. I got that shadow right here. It's a bit dark though. So I shouldn't have, I mean, I got a mistake here. I shouldn't have put this foliage in here because now I can't change the house without messing around with this green bit. Let me see if I can chop it out. So if you go to automatic, turn color fill off, and hopefully I could choose the foliage, just the foliage, right? And you triple, so I'm using 3 fingers down, and then you can cut it out. Yeah, there we go. It's gone now. I think. It's hard to tell. I think it's gone. But that was a mistake. So don't have 2 wildly different colors right next to each other, because if I want to, I mean, I still got the cutout anyways. It's fine, but you can't adjust otherwise. So now I can adjust without it messing around with the flow. So I want to. I don't know. Red's a really, really pain in the ass color, to be honest. So, but it's the best color for houses. But it's really difficult to deal with. Okay, what was it like before? No. Yeah, let's go for the lighter one. Still not quite right. I don't know what's. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it needs some texture. But I don't really want to put too much. Maybe I'll try a little bit of texture. So what texture means is, obviously you think about, mega texture and, carpets and things like that. And that's not what I mean. Texture in this context, I'm going to put it back to freehand and color fill, is make sure you go the same kind of direction of this. So what texture means is like a tiny, tiny color shift. Not enough. Let's try that again. It's kind of hard because I only want it really, really subtle. Let's try that. Yeah, maybe. Let's try this. Again, different shapes and sizes. Okay, yeah, that's not bad. Let's try to do the same thing on here. Pick that and just mess with her a little bit. Move it to there and move it to there. You're going to be very subtle. I'm using Procreate on iPad. It's called Procreate. Very cheap. Only costs like 10 quid or something. When you think the amount of hours I've used it for, that's incredible. They could probably charge hundreds for this, and people would pay it. Thank you. I don't know how many people. I think millions of people use Procreate, but I don't know for sure. It's got a lot of downloads. This was well worth 10 quid or whatever. The amount of used it, it's probably one of the best value things I've ever used. Kind of not liking this bit, to be honest. It's too big. You got to worry about scale a little bit, and it's like this bush is like gigantic. I know it's in the front, but probably need to deal with this. Okay, so luckily I put on a new layer. That one's not too bad. Let's just deal with this one. So we go freehand, make sure you turn color fill off. Let's grab this thing. This thing's crazy. Okay, that's better. Scale is quite difficult when it comes to landscapes. I always used to get it wrong, like I had gigantic boulders and things like that. So, okay, it's not too bad now. But what we need up the front is more detail. Oops. Let's forget to turn color fill back on. Is tiny little details, and you can go nuts with this if you're a detail person. Like I know lots of people who paint R because they love. Oh, that's one thing annoying about this thing is if you miss that grey dot, this little grey dot, you probably don't see it. That I'm hitting this tiny grey dot really quickly, a lot. I'm so used to hitting it. Like I can hit it very quickly, which is kind of like a game or something. But if you miss it though, and you try and finish, it kind of just doesn't fill in anymore, which is annoying. What I mean, like, is if you go, like, I get this one, and then I go there, and then I don't fill it in, and then I move on, and then I've lost everything, which is, yeah, kind of annoying, but doesn't happen very often once you get used to it. Luckily, that spot is big. I wonder if you can make it bigger, actually. Might be in the settings. It'd be good if you could make it bigger. It's pretty big anyway. But I use another app. I was playing with another app yesterday, earlier. Affinity Designer. And that has a little dot too, but it's absolutely tiny. And I keep on missing it. Yeah, it's driving me absolutely nuts. Again, with the rocks, I still think... So one thing to pay attention to is balance. Now, I know that might sound a vague term, because it is. But balance kind of means that if you have one thing somewhere, you have to have it somewhere else. So you can't have like 2 rocks over here and none over there, or, you know, 1 tree there and no trees there. It just doesn't make any sense. So you have to balance it out, which is what that means. I still don't like this house. It's still bugging me. And we need some detail in the background because it looks like a big like blob of field, which just wouldn't happen. So let's put something there. In reality, you know, if you take a picture of this kind of stuff, around there would be tons of fields, tons of detail, all sorts of stuff. But we won't go nuts, but we need something. And I usually just put very simple, like pretend trees and things. So one thing you got to do though is they kind of got to follow like a weird little path type thing. because in perspective they're going to be flat and they're going to be, yeah, it's not that difficult. You get used to it. Unfortunately, it's under everything else away. It's in the wrong thing. Okay, there we go. Let's just make sure it's going in the right place. Yeah, that's fine. You can use brushes, of course. There's nothing wrong with using brushes, but I find they don't really help me out too much. I do love rendering stuff now and again. Right, so let's just put detail like this, trees and things, and we'll see what it looks like. Not sure I'm gonna nail it. I would almost guarantee I won't. But it looks better. It looks better already. Like there's things in the background. It doesn't really matter what they are, just things. You can put even little buildings and stuff. I've done that before, like pretend little buildings. They look very bright in the background when you have buildings really far away. So they're basically white because they see the white bits of your house and they kind of reflect in the distance. And you can put like little, as long as it's very desaturated stuff, it doesn't really matter. You look at it and think, oh, what's that? It doesn't really matter what it is. It's just detail. Now, I don't like this crisscross though. So I can recognize when you have weird things like that going on. Okay, one thing I don't like is this transition between this blue. My stream current bitrate is lower than recommended. Okay, brilliant. What do I do with that? Okay, not sure what that's complaining about. Okay, so the transition, because I don't do gradients and I don't paint and I don't use brushes. One thing I do need to do though, there's transitions between this and they don't look very good. So what I do then is just create another layer between this one and this one. And make sure it's above, well, I mean, it doesn't really matter, put it, and then I'll choose this color. I don't really know what I want, I'll just make it darker. And then I'll just start making shapes between these two where fields would go and things like that. And it might look a bit weird now because it's the wrong color, but I'm not too worried about the color yet. Where's my dot gone? That's what I'm talking about, the dot. It's gone. It's completely gone. Okay, sometimes when you use certain colors, it's really hard to see that dot. Or it just went completely. Maybe there's a bug, I don't know. I couldn't see it. But we play it back, we could see it somewhere. Okay, so maybe it's the wrong color now, but now you can mess with it. And what we want is in between this color and this color. And now it blends better. I mean, it's not perfect. It doesn't need to be, but like it's too harsh. So we get this nice blend or blending, and we could probably do with the same thing underneath. And so we want a bit more detail going here. And all you gotta do is like chop stuff out, like there's fields in the background or something. Just make sure there's not too many straight lines. You don't need to dwell too much on the background. Okay, I'm not going to mess around with this too much more. I could spend hours on this, to be honest. It was more about just trying the house or the farm or whatever you want to call it. I still think it's maybe a bit too uniform. Let me create another one. Clip a mask. Maybe it needs to degrade down here a bit more. It's not dark enough. And maybe the roof. Oops. Okay, that's better. Gives it a bit more character. Maybe do the same here. Try and get some like sunspots or something. Okay, yeah, it's getting better. Like I say, I don't do these very often. I need to do them more. There's something annoying about this. You get this path, but there's no path to this house. I mean, that's basically impossible, you know, because there would be something. Right, I got the wrong color there, but it doesn't really matter. So I'll choose, hopefully the right color. Okay, that'll do. Right, so we've got a path going in now. It's like, even if you're painting these weird kind of things and they're not realistic, you still have to have real things going on. Like you know, you got a house and you just total grass go into it. I mean, unless it's completely empty, this is not going to happen, is it? So, okay, let's put some simple. What's in this? There's nothing. Okay, let's put some simple flowers. Let's try red. I'm not going to try red. One trick to do is how you make harmony with colors. This is red. Red is a very powerful color. You just learn that over time. You have very powerful colors, so you want to balance that color out. It's doing it with the sky. So how you do that is pick this color thing, change to the harmony wheel, which is quite nice. It's in any app. There's another thing. It's called color wheel in general or whatever. So this color, the perfect color in theory to our eyes, is this blue. Oops, missed it. Let's take it again. This blue. It doesn't have to be that accurate. It's just anything around here, to be honest. And you can put that into the sky now as well if you really wanted to, because that is the perfect blue for that red. Now, you don't have to be that accurate though, and you know, don't worry too much about that. But I'm trying to look for flower colors, and flower colors are generally tiny anyway, so you get away with things a lot more when they're small. You know, if they're big, sometimes they're a little bit more complicated. But let's go with this blue. Now, we went with this blue purely because it matches that. Now, if I changed it to something else, everything would start looking a bit weird. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't work. They still work, so it's not the end of the world. But what works is the blue that match that. Now, keep in mind, you might want to saturate and lighten it a bit, because that blue, perfect blue, is on that horizon. Sorry, not horizon. Well, yeah, horizon, whatever. On this plane. So if this blue was over there, it would be a different color. But because it's right in your face, it's brighter. Sun's hitting it. So it's not quite as simple as take that blue and blast it there. It works. I mean, so it'll be good enough. But if I was putting in the flowers there, you could take the exact same color. So we go there, take the harmony color there, and that would be the exact same color. And that would be the perfect harmony color there. The problem is you're not putting it there. You're putting it here. So it changes slightly, but only slightly. So just change it slightly and you'll be fine. Okay, I generally don't just do one color though. With the flowers white, I don't like this harmony color thing much. I mean, it's only good when basically you're trying to do harmony. So you've got complementary and you've got a couple of other ones which are pretty cool. The triadic one's good as well. So you could go to green. So let's start with green. The only problem with the green is I kind of already have a green with all this stuff, so it won't stand out so much. But that's not bad. That's not bad. Let's go for it again, because it's not right there. I want to go back to classic, boost it a little bit. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Now, one thing I always do is I add white flowers, because there's always something like daisies or whatever. There's just always stuff that seems to be white. I'm not a flower man. I have no idea what these flowers are, but I go hiking a lot and I see all these little different colors, and I pay no attention to the names whatsoever. Probably should, but I do not. So it is what it is. So another good thing to do up in the front is put grab the grass color or the dark color. Grass color is fine, and to make the rocks sit on the floor more, put things in front of them. Overlap is one of the best, easiest things to make your landscape have a lot of depth. And it's not, I mean, okay, I'm not saying it's easy, but put things over things, and that means like fences or foliage, and you know, there's other stuff. So we got trees in front of the background's in front of the mountain, we got the house in front of the trees, and we got the rocks in front of the grass. So it's not about big things in front of big things, it's just little things in front of little things over and over and over again, and that adds up to a lot. So as you're closer to the grass, you get these spiky bits going on. As you go further back, don't do them. So keep attention to not do that. What I mean by that is you'll see the little grassy spikes here. Don't do them there. Oops. Let me grab the thing. Don't do them there because you wouldn't see them. And you just about get away with it here because this is all in the foreground. But if you had like going up like real grass going all the way up there, don't go too far into the background with detail. You can see in this painting that we've got like a very obvious foreground and a very obvious background. So in this foreground, you could probably do pretty much as much detail as you want, probably, but be careful about pushing it too far into the background. Okay, so now I'm just messing around with effects. So now I just try things. I don't know, maybe put some smoke going. Like this is where I don't know if it works. Alpha lock it. Make sure everything has 2 tones. Everything should have at least 2 tones. If you want more realistic, then you're going 3, 4, 5. But everything should have at least 2 to give it form. Okay, and one neat little trick I learned when I was painting landscapes and acrylics was you can put this orange and red in the window. Gotta be a bit careful here because it's kind of in the dark, so you gotta be a bit careful not to go too light. And it looks like people have lights on in the windows. Oops. Which looks like quite nice. There we go. Looks like they're kind of home. Probably you could do with a bit more. And it's kind of weird that this place doesn't have a window in the front. It doesn't. It's a weird like shed thing, so it doesn't have to be awesome. But again, consistency. Now we can put this orangey bit in here too. We can probably boost it all the way up because it is in the sunlight, and you probably want a bit of shading on this one as well. I'm in the wrong clip and mask thing. No, it's there, this way. Okay, I'll do. Like I'm fiddling now, so I want to be a bit careful not to do too much more, to be honest. Okay, I think I'm probably gonna leave it there. Maybe some last highlights on the grass. Let's go for there. And you can go, oops, I'm sure I have the right thing on. Now it looks absolutely horrendous at the moment. It's kind of on purpose. So now we want to drop the opacity just a bit of complication to it. Yeah, it's looking okay. Usually I check my gallery because I have lots of paintings similar. I just see what it looks like in isolation, not isolation, sorry, within all the rest of these, and it's like, is it comparable? Which is nice, obviously, once you have loads of them. It's like, okay, this one stands out more, that one stands out more, that one's more colourful, etc. And it holds its own, I think. It's one thing I don't like about it. I like put in overly ridiculous clouds going down into the mountains. Don't know why. It's just a thing I like to do. It's not something anybody else probably would do, but I don't know, it kind of looks like an avalanche or something. It just blends it in with the background a lot more. And then when you zoom back out, it just looks like it blends in more. I don't particularly like the green in the background compared to that. But you can't get too fiddly with it, because, I go further down and they get worse, obviously, because obviously I'm getting better as, well, hopefully I'm getting better as we go. But it's not bad. I think it'll do. I'm not sure about these rocks, actually. They're a bit bright. Let's try darkening those. Or does bright look better? I don't know. Probably doesn't make much difference. Okay, I'm fairly happy with that. The main thing was the building. And it's okay. I think I could do better. Again, with consistency, one building doesn't look absolutely brilliant either. I'd probably like to have another one over there. Like, because houses are rarely by themselves. Like, so when you have houses, they become a focus, and it gets a little bit more tricky. Because when I don't have so much focus, the house isn't standing out. I tried to do this one as well. This didn't work out so well. I went a bit nuts here trying to work this out. This was just a practice and lots of scribbles and things, but that didn't work out either. The perspective wasn't so great. But yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Okay, I think I'm going to end this now. Thanks for anybody watching, and hopefully I'll see you again. See you guys.